Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of In Jessica's Corner. First and foremost, I do want to apologize to you guys because it's literally been about 6 to 8 months since I tuned in for an episode with you guys, and I kind of just fell off the face of the earth with not even a little bit of a heads up, but we're back. And I have figured out a way to be able to maintain my podcast presence, my YouTube presence, and try to be a low influencer on the side. These are all things that are fun to me, which is why I continue doing them. And so I'm glad that you guys are still interested in hopping along for this ride. So today's episode is going to be entitled, "You Are Such an Imposter." So I know I can't be the only one that feels this way. We have so much going on in our lives that's amazing, and so many positive things and so many achievements and so much happiness. And I think that one of the things that we unfortunately fall into is the struggle of trying to combat imposter syndrome. We have convinced ourselves that we are not capable, we are not deserving, and we are not qualified for whatever reason. And now I'll tell you why I do it, because you guys know that I love to be transparent. You guys know that I love to keep it real with y'all. I feel like this occurs because we are so used to being told what to do, being told how to do things, and the structure of life has always been kind of given to us. And I think now we're at this point in our lives where we are the people that control our destiny. We are the people that are making decisions about our future, the future of the world. We are the trailblazers. We are the trailblazers. We are the change makers. We are the shifters of the universe right now. And I think our generation is having a hard time understanding that, because I think, all right, so previous generations, please don't take this the wrong way, but I feel like to a certain degree we were coddled in relation to decision making because we weren't grown. We don't know nothing about life. Oh, you just need to live. You need to experience some stuff. And I think indirectly, we experienced a lot. Vicariously, we struggled a lot. We saw a lot in our timeline of life that makes a difference in the way that we make decisions. Yeah, we do have our ways about us. Yeah, we want things done a certain way. But I think the point that previous generations are missing is that you guys had a preference too. And your preference had to be respected to a certain degree. And now we're demanding respect. We're no longer asking for it. We're no longer fighting for it. We're no longer waiting on it. And I think in the same fashion, we need to assume the same position when it comes to our personal and professional lives. So, of course, in the professional realm of life, we can easily dive into imposter syndrome. And this is an easy discussion to have. We are getting the promotions, making more money, gaining more responsibility. We are the decision makers. We are the people whose opinion have a heavy burden on which direction the company goes in relation to certain efforts, depending on whatever your function is. But I think sometimes we often forget about the possibility of imposter syndrome that has crept up into our personal lives. We start to think that we're not deserving of this amazing man or this amazing family or these amazing children or this amazing amount of support or this outpour of love or just the unbelievable amount of growth that we can kind of experience within ourselves. We're starting to see ourselves grow. We're starting to see ourselves evolve. We're starting to really embrace being honest with ourselves and the happiness that brings. And I think that it's hard for us to do that because we've just never been in a place where all of these things were acceptable from our perspective. I guess that's the best way to put it. And so, I just start to look at things like, why is everybody so, I use myself. No, I don't have these thoughts, but I'm going to insert myself so that nobody else feels like I'm calling them out. When I hear things like, well, why does it seem like all these people that get engaged and then they don't get married, or they get married and it doesn't work out, or they seem like such a happy family. They have children and then things seem to fall apart. They seem like their career's on the right path and then all of a sudden they are it looks like they're going from job to job. It looks like success is no longer theirs. I think a lot of the times we have to like really be clear about why, and the why differs based on the person. But I think that as people, we've defined a successful relationship as A over A through Z. We've defined a successful professional career as A versus A through Z. And we have to understand that there are so many different ways that love and happiness and success can be defined. But imposter syndrome will come in and say, because my relationship doesn't look like what Instagram tells me, because my relationship doesn't look like what my best friend's relationship looks like, because professionally I'm not where I want to be, because all of my friends are doing all these amazing things in their career and I'm not, then I'm not successful. But are you happy? And if you're happy, then perhaps the trajectory of your life is going exactly the way it needs to be. And we have to understand that like imposter syndrome will come in and tell us that we're not doing something because it doesn't look like what we think. And then even then, if you believe in God, then you understand that what you think or what you expect from your life is not necessarily what will happen in it. And I think that, constantly we begin to start asking ourselves, well, how is this happening for me? Why is this happening for me? Or even just mentally affirming like, listen, all right, God, I know I'm good now, but I ain't that good. But what if for a second, what if we fought imposter syndrome back and was like, oh no, I'm really that good. I'm that girl. Like the girls that get it, and the girls that don't. Like I'm really that girl. Yes, I am. And stop allowing you to doubt you, because that's really what imposter syndrome is. It allows you to really discredit yourself, doubt yourself, belittle yourself, devalue yourself, if we want to take it that far. Because sis, you are the prize. Sis, you got the juice. Sis, you really can do this. Bruh, you are the prize. Bruh, you got the juice. Bruh, you're really capable. Bruh, you really doing it. And so that's the other thing. Let's take a second and let's step back and let's really be honest with ourselves. Like we really out here doing these things that we think we not capable of, we not qualified for it, and we not deserving of. Sis, bruh, you doing it. So why do you keep telling yourself otherwise? It doesn't even make sense at this point. Like listen to yourself. Listen to yourself and then look at what you're doing. It ain't what's not clicking, Steven. What's not clicking? Okay. I'm gonna move on. So, as we just begin to dive into imposter syndrome more, I think one of the things that like we really need to do is really sit in the realization of like our success and work hard to have like viable opportunities for success always in our reach. And what do I mean by that? What you mean, Jess? So, unfortunately, in this life, success is a lot about the chase. We achieve one level of success, we searching for the next one. We check one thing off the list of goals in our personal life, we chasing the next one. We are trying to do all these different things, and we just begin to realize that like the more we try to do something, the more we're continuing to do something else. Like there's a never ending chase to literally just make it happen in life. There's a never ending chase to literally just maintain success. So it's one of those things where, okay, if I do this now, I'm really successful. But then now, in order for me to maintain that level of success, it's almost like it's I'm not going to use, what's the buddy named Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I think like maybe there's a hierarchy of success, and I think that, it's unfortunately is never ending. So think about, I'm about to get real deep. Think about the stairway to heaven, right? Every step gets you higher and higher to those golden pearly gates. But if we're really being honest with ourselves, like, yeah, there's a point that you get to the top, but we all know that getting to the top equates to you obviously, leaving this world and going to the eternal world. So let's use this for the sake of the discussion. Let's think about it like, your first step is when you were born, and think about how many steps you have to get to the top. We're constantly chasing something else because we always feel like we have to be progressive. And imposter syndrome will make you feel that way. Imposter syndrome will tell you that being still is too stagnant for success. But sometimes you have to be still in order to achieve or obtain that next level of success. You know, sometimes being still is where you gain the knowledge for that next level up. Like, we really got to start thinking about the way that we achieve things differently, because like there's this thing that I always see on social media, and I'm always like, you know, it's about perspective and it's all about your mindset. Once you decide, for example, once you decide that you're going to have a good day, you're going to have one. But when you wake up and you decide, I am not in the mood, this is not going to be a good day, you literally just made the decision that you weren't going to have a good day. So in the same fashion, because you told yourself that stagnation means that you're not being successful, you block out the opportunity to be a sponge and soak up all the experience. You block out the opportunity to be a sponge and soak up all the knowledge. You block out the opportunity to network and establish these connections that can expand your reach once you get to that next step. Bruh, sis, it's literally all about you being able to tap into a different mindset of leveling up and understanding like you're capable. And really, let's take it further. Not even just you're capable, you're doing it. You're moving along to that next step, even when it doesn't seem like it. Let me go back to God. When stuff is going wrong in your world and you're praying, you're like, all right, God, now you told me to do this. I've been praying. I've been listening to sermons. I've been trying to stay out of trouble. You know, I've been staying committed. I've been reading scriptures, praying every day and night, you know, just trying to make sure my soul right. And it seemed like everything is going wrong. And I think one thing that I've learned from God is that it's in the trouble that you'll be triumphant every time. Like, but you got to stay down with him through that process. And I just feel like imposter syndrome, the only way to get through it is legitimately the same thing. Like, sometimes you got to weather the storm. Sometimes you got to fight through it. Life is never going to be easy. And imposter syndrome will kind of tell you that this is too hard. Let's move on to the next thing. You losing your fight. You losing your drive, and you losing the desire to push through to the next thing. Like, what you doing? Like, what you out here doing, bruh? This don't make no sense. All right, but I digress. So, of course, as we begin to kind of like think through all these different things, I just think that like we got to keep it real with ourselves, that we are able to understand that we deserve everything that we're getting and all the things that are coming to us in the future. Like, I want to give you a tidbit of information that might be in the back of your mind as an alternative, and it completely goes against what I'm about to tell you. But hear me when I say this. You have nothing to prove to people who mean you no good. Your haters, they will be watching from the stands, but you have nothing to prove to them. You have nothing to prove to that person that wants to see you fail. You have nothing to prove to them. You have everything to prove to yourself. So imposter syndrome will kind of tell you that, I'm doing real good for myself. Like, I don't really have to go out here and chase this next thing. I don't really need to excel and be better right now. Like, I can just chill. This is comfortable. I don't need nothing else, you know. Ain't no need for me to be out here making all this stuff a requirement. Like, it's not necessary. But why isn't it? Why? And again, you know, I'm kind of contradicting myself, but I want you to understand what imposter syndrome will do. It'll tell you that you've done enough. Don't pursue anything else when pursuing something else is what you're interested in. It will also tell you that when you're interested in being still, that being still is not going to be productive for you. So you have to understand that imposter syndrome will always be the alternative to what you're considering as your means to your next level up. I struggle sometimes with like openly discussing my internal battle with imposter syndrome, because I feel like strong people are most often overlooked as somebody that's struggling with imposter syndrome. And so let me just tell y'all, because I feel like I've said it several times, but like, what is imposter syndrome? To put it simply, imposter syndrome is the experience of feeling like a phony. You feel as though at any moment you're going to be found out as a fraud, like you don't belong where you are, and you only got there through dumb luck. And it's the mindset of feeling less than, and it can both lead to and reinforce the belief that you don't really belong in whatever environment that is. And some people do, however, struggle from depression because of it. It's a very real and specific form of intellectual self-doubt. Now, there is one article that I read that spoke about it in the millennial generation facet, and it really spoke of the fact of it being fear. And I think that's a real thing. And honestly, I'm going to take it further for you. I think imposter syndrome for Jessica is fear of failure. Y'all, I do not want to fail. And I haven't failed. And there aren't any signs that lead to me potentially failing in this life. But the reality of the world that we live in is people fail every day. Now, there are certain levels of failure, but I think I just look at failure as like your life falling apart professionally, you are struggling, even in your personal life, your marriage is a mess. You are a mess as a person. You don't love yourself. You struggle with just self-acceptance, self-awareness of your value. There are just so many things that you struggle with. You don't have the right kind of support system. Those are all the things that I deem failure, like. And I'm none of those things. So why do I fear failure so much? Because I know those are the things that I don't want to be. And that's exactly what I said earlier. It's based on those definitions. You give meaning to so many different things, and they control your world, because that's either where you add value or that's where you deem failure or devalue. And over time, those kinds of things can really like take over your world, take over your mind, control you. And you have to start to get in front of that kind of stuff so that you can be the best version of yourself. Like, for everybody listening, y'all know that, like, if nothing else, I have always worked to be super transparent. And I think that for me, for the first time in a long time, I have a lot of good things going on, and I feel like I'm still not doing enough. That's a real thing. That's a real feeling. I don't really know what else I want to do with some other things, I'm trying to do in the background, but I still feel like it's not enough. And I think that's what imposter syndrome is for me, telling me that even with everything I have going on right now, that's not enough. I still need to do more. But like, at what point do I reach overload? Like, at what point am I doing too much? At what point am I pushing myself too far? And I feel like that's what imposter syndrome is for me. Imposter syndrome for me is the idea that I push myself too far, to the point where I don't do anything because I'm too overwhelmed by all of the demands that I put on myself. So for everybody listening, I hope that this discussion encouraged you to really take a moment and think about, like, how honest are you being with yourself? What are those things that are driving success, failure, or just pushing you to that next thing? Is it a healthy relationship that you have with it? If it's not, have you identified why it's not healthy? And no, I am not a counselor. I am not a psychologist, but I am simply somebody who lives in my head most of the time. So I'm always processing these kinds of thoughts. Y'all, I want to be a positive influence for people. I want to be the person that people can have conversations with, and at the end of that discussion, they feel empowered to go do something about whatever their issues are. And not because I get it right, and not because I have the answers, but just because I'm willing to sit here and talk through your thoughts with you, because I sit with my thoughts all day. And I mean, I talk about them, I get them out my head sometimes, but I just really want y'all to be as empowered as I was to have this discussion with y'all. Like, if you think you don't struggle from imposter syndrome, look up what imposter syndrome means, read all the different definitions, and then see if maybe it's present in your life. And if you know that you struggle with imposter syndrome, start to figure out how to combat it. Like, I understand what the alternative is for the imposter syndrome thoughts. And so what I do is I try to incorporate that into each day. Now, it's a day by day thing. So don't think that because, oh yeah, I got imposter syndrome, I about to dog imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome ain't about to get me. Oh no, you think you about to slay me? No, I about to slay you first, bruh. No, please don't go into it like that, because you ain't gonna succeed, man. But in general, I hope that you are empowered to fight back with imposter syndrome strongly and firmly and stand on the idea and concept that you are deserving, you are qualified, you are capable, and you are why everything amazing is happening to and for you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode, the first of 2022. As always, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And as always, return for the next episode. Bye, y'all.